Hi guys, my name is Nonima Dikela. Welcome to my YouTube channel. So today I want us to talk about Tumelo Madlala and how him as the witness inside the room, how Tumelo Madlala's story holds and leaks at the same time. It holds and then it also leaks. So we are going to talk about that. The Senzo Meyiwa trial, that is what it is about. Now, before we do that, guys, please make sure you do not forget to like, to share, to comment. And most importantly, please make sure you are subscribed on the channel. Please make sure you are watching the videos up until the end and you are watching the ads that are coming through. When you are doing that, you'll be supporting this channel financially and in numbers. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you. Now, people think the Senzo Meyiwa trial is about phone records, about call logs, about towers and timestamps. That's wrong. This case lives or dies on one thing: what happened inside the house. It lives or dies with one thing: what happened inside the house. And for the state, no witness carries that burden more than Tumelo Madlala, Zandile Khumalo, all of them. But right now, let's focus on Tumelo Madlala. Because when the shot was fired, when chaos exploded, when Senzo fell, Madlala was there. Inside the room, inside the moment, inside the story, the state needs to survive. Today, we dismantle that testimony piece by piece and expose why it is powerful, emotional, and structurally dangerous. Firstly, why Madlala is not just a witness. Let's focus on that. Tumelo Madlala is not a peripheral figure. He is not a passerby. He is not a neighbor hearing gunfire. He is an inside the house witness. That makes him the state's bridge between theory, speculation, and physical violence. Without Madlala, the state has data. Without Madlala, the state has data. With Madlala, the state claims truth. Okay? That is why his testimony is protected, elevated, and emotionally framed. And that is exactly why the defense went for the foundation, not the emotion. Secondly, the intruders. You know that there's an intruder story, the story that must not fail, according to the state. Madlala tells the court, 2 intruders entered the house. A robbery was underway. There was shouting, confusion, movement. One intruder is allegedly restrained, pushed against a wall near the kitchen. Madlala says Senzo is involved in restraining that intruder. This detail is critical. Why? Because once Senzo is placed physically in contact with an alleged intruder, the state can say the shot happened during the robbery. Everything depends on that position. Thirdly, the short seconds that define a case. That's exactly what the case is about, that fatal shot. Then comes the moment the entire trial revolves around: a struggle, a flash of violence, a single gunshot. Madlala does not see the bullet travel. He does not describe the exact firing mechanism. What he gives the court instead is contextual certainty. There was a struggle. The intruder was close. The shot happened in that chaos, and then fear takes over. Madlala runs into a bedroom. This is important, okay? From this moment onwards, everything he knows is no longer observation, it is aftermath. Number 4, aftermath, when memory starts to shift. That's the focus right now. When Madlala emerges, Senzo is no longer standing. He is on the floor near the couch or TV area. Blood, panic, screaming. This is where Madlala becomes deeply emotional in court. Tears, breaks, pauses. And here is the uncomfortable truth. Emotion does not equal accuracy. Trauma explains why memory fractures, but it does not repair the fracture. And the defense knew exactly where to press when it comes to Madlala, even with that theatrics that he was playing, Number 5, the phone call that cracked the story. This is where the testimony starts leaking. Madlala tells the court he phoned Senzo's brother to report what happened, but how and where that call was made changed. On a version, he called from Butseleng Hospital. One version, he called from Butseleng Hospital using a neighbor's phone because he had no airtime. Another version, he called from the Khumalo house using his own phone. That is not a minor slip. That is a sin-moving contradiction, because location matters, timing matters, and words matter also, especially when the phrase accidentally short enters the record. Once that phrase exists, the state no longer controls the narrative clearly. They can't, because that is what the Meyiwa family is holding on, accidentally short. It was said to them by Madlala, by Kelly Khumalo, to two people from the Meyiwa family side when they called in panic. So that is what they are moving with. And that is why they do not understand now why is the story changing, because the first calls, they said nothing about intruders. But now we are expected to accept the intruder story, which is not making sense to the family. So that is why we are here now. Number 6, identification, this one, and the danger of certainty. Then comes the most dramatic courtroom moment. Madlala identifies Bongani Ntanzi. He points, he says, this is the man. The man, the state needs this identification, but the defense understand identification law. They challenge appearance, beard, distance, lighting, memory decay, and then comes a crucial psychological moment. Madlala refuses to move closer to the accused. To some, that looks like fear. To a court trained in criminal evidence, it also looked like avoidance of scrutiny. And that ambiguity matters, because what the hell? You just said this is the man. So take a closer look at him and tell us which features do you see exactly that makes you believe that right now, right here in this courtroom, Bongani Ntanzi is the man. He refused. He refused, guys. He refused to do that. And that alone was like a very big question mark. And we were like, it was avoiding. Because now, after him going near him, the scrutiny that was going to come from the defense, it was not going to be child's play. And he knew that. He was very much aware that it's going to rain, thunderstorms and stuff. That was going to come, because the defense was not going to let him just walk over like that. Okay, number 7, the second docket, clouds. However, they can go and on and on and on. Now, what we have hovering over Madlala's testimony is something far bigger than his words, the second docket. A second docket, case 375. A docket that allegedly named people inside the house, recommended charges, never reached prosecution. That fact alone introduces a devastating question. Who was supposed to be in the dock, and who was selected to testify instead? Once that question exists, every inside the house witness carries an invisible burden, self-preservation. It's not like they have a choice. The court does not need to decide that docket today, but it cannot pretend it doesn't exist. Number 8, the verdict on the witness, not the case. Tumelo Madlala is not lying in the cartoon sense. He is also not the clean surgical witness the state wishes he were. He is emotionally credible, situationally present, but structurally inconsistent. And in a case already poisoned by investigative controversy, inconsistent is not neutral. It is leverage. And that is what the defense is going to eat out. They are going to open that dish and they are going to eat and leave no crumbs. When the time comes, they did their best, but there is also arguments that needs to be cleared. There's a lot of things that are going to put, like, you know, the defense is very great when it comes to arguments. They are good. They are so good. The Senzo Meyiwa case will not collapse because of technology. It will rise or fall on human memory. And Tumelo Madlala's testimony proves one brutal truth. Being inside the room does not mean you control the truth. It means the truth passes through you, fractured. And that is exactly what happened there. That is exactly what happened there. Because the focus now was the crime scene. First Laura's house, evening gathering, normalcy before intrusion. Intruders came in, according to them. 2 men enter, robbery narrative introduced, 1 intruder allegedly restrained, and then there was also a shot. Struggle, gunshot, Madlala flees to the bedroom. These things are very, very important. And then there was the aftermath. Senzo on the floor, panic and chaos, trauma overtakes observation. And then there was phone call contradiction, hospital versus the house, borrowed phone versus own phone of Madlala. And then there is this statement, accidentally shot, that enters the records, which is hard. So I'm just doing a recap on that. And the second docket, cloud. Alternate investigative path, inside house occupants implicated, selective prosecution, question explodes. So that is why the Senzo Meyiwa case is problematic. That is why the Senzo Meyiwa case will always have fractures and will always find its way in places that it's not usually supposed to be in a criminal case, but it is on this one. Anyway, guys, what are your thoughts when it comes to this? Let's talk in the comment section. I want to hear your views, your thoughts. Let's drop those comments there. Please make sure you do not forget to like, to share, to comment, and most importantly, please make sure you are subscribed on the channel. You are watching the videos up until the end, and you are watching the ads that are coming through. When you are doing that, you will be supporting this channel financially and in numbers. Thank you so much. I will see you on our next video. Enjoy your day. Bye-bye.